Hey everybody, this is Dr. Speights with Math Videos on PowerPoint. This lesson covers the quadratic formula. Now there are several methods out there for solving quadratic equations. Now if the equation can be easily factored, the zero factor property would be the most efficient way to solve it. Now if it's not factorable, then you can use the square root property, completing the square, or the quadratic formula, which this lesson will focus on. Now the quadratic formula equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now this formula can look a bit intimidating, but it's actually not that bad. Now the first thing we need to do for solving the quadratic formula is to make sure that the equation is in standard form. Now recall, standard form is where all your numbers are on the left side of the equation and 0 is on the right side of the equation. And the reason for that is because we're going to assign values to the variables a, b, and c. The coefficient of the first term, the x squared term, we call that a. The coefficient of the second term, the x term, we call that b. And the coefficient of the last term, the constant, we call that c. So in this example of the equation here, the coefficient of the first term is 3. So therefore a is 3. The coefficient of the second term is negative 17, so therefore b equals negative 17. And the coefficient of the last term, the constant, is negative 6, so c would equal negative 6. So again, a equals 3, b equals negative 17, and c equals negative 6. You're going to use these values to simply plug into the quadratic formula to solve. Example 1, solve using the quadratic formula. So the equation is x squared minus 4x equals negative 2. What do you notice about that equation? Well, if you said that it's not in standard form, then that's correct. Recall, the first step is to make sure that the equation is in standard form so that we can assign variables to a, b, and c. So the first step toward getting it in standard form would be to add 2 to each side, because we want to get all our numbers on the left side and 0 on the right. So let's go ahead and do that. So now that the equation is in standard form, we can go ahead and assign variables. Notice the coefficient of the first term is 1, so a is 1. The coefficient of the second term is negative 4, so b is negative 4. And the coefficient of the last term is 2, so c is 2. Once we assign variables, the next step is just to simply plug them into the quadratic formula and do the math. So here I have a double negative, negative 4, but with a negative in front of it becomes plus 4. Here I have negative 4 squared, that's negative 4 times negative 4, which is positive 16. Over here I'm multiplying 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8. But with a negative in front of all those numbers, it's going to give me negative 8 all over 2. Next, I need to perform the subtraction operation underneath the radical symbol. That's going to give me 8. 8 is not a perfect square, but it does have a perfect inside of it. So let's simplify that radical. The perfect square inside would be 4. We're going to solve the 4. It goes on the outside, and what's left remains underneath the symbol. So that's going to leave us an answer with 4 plus or minus 2, radical 2 all over 2. Now, notice I wrote it with a 2 underneath both terms. So recall that you had 2 terms here, 2 terms. And they shared a denominator of 2. And I simply just place that 2 underneath both terms so that I can simplify this expression. 4 divided by 2 equals 2. I can cancel the 2's here, and that leaves me with 2 plus or minus square root of 2.